This is the Landlord Advocates, where we help landlords become better landlords. I'm your host, Matthew Lyman. Welcome. As some of you are aware, or most of you are aware by now, the Centers for Disease Control put out a 37-page agency order last night, halting evictions until the end of the year for most tenants across America. There are certain variables and conditions that tenants must meet in order to qualify for this horrendous program that is, again, another oppressive act against landlords. Only this one covers all of the United States, and it is not like the previous Eviction Moratorium that only covered federally backed mortgages and Section 8 housing. Now it covers so much more. This act was done by CDC, and we have the name of the individual who's in charge of this, and we have her phone number. We're going to give you that information right now. Her name is Nina Witkowski. She's the acting chief of staff for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Her phone number is 404-639-7000. That information will be listed down below in the description, so feel free to go down and read it and call her. Let her know how you feel. The main crux of why they passed this is to stop the spread of COVID-19 across America. That's the reason why they did that. They don't want homelessness. They don't want people crowded into homeless shelters or crowded in with other people and cohabitating in one bedroom with 17 people. So that's why they did that, to keep people where they are regardless. Again, an oppressive act by the government against landlords. What tenants must do now is they must do what's called a declaration that they swear to and affirm and all this other stuff, and then it's given to the landlord. They have to meet 7 criteria in order for this to happen. Now we question, is it 1 criterion is enough to qualify to not be evicted through the end of the year? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or all 7 must be met? We don't know. It hasn't been tested yet. We hope that all of them have to be met. 2 of them are basically after the coronavirus, so basically 5 of them are most important. And we're hoping that all 5 have to be met, because the more they have to meet, the easier it should be for landlords to evict these tenants for failure to comply with the provisions outlined in this agency order that we're going to go over with you right now. The first, I have used the best efforts to obtain all available government assistance for rent and housing. I have utilized best efforts. What is best efforts? Is that where you get a predicate notice, the 3-day, 14-day, whatever may be applicable in your jurisdiction, that once you get that, now you went and go get assistance to pay the rent? Is it that you now receive the notice that you owe 7 months worth of rent? And the landlord says, pay or get out. Now you're going to get assistance from the government? Is that what they call it? Best interest? Is this left up to a judge's interpretation? We have seen this countless times prior to COVID, where a tenant has received a notice from the landlord via our office or a professional office such as ours to pay the rent or move. And then they get off the sofa, and they get off the recliner chair, and they get out of bed, they get out of wherever they are, and they walk themselves down to the local social services office to ask for help. We have said many times to our clients, how long would it have taken them to go if you had delayed serving this notice another 2 or 3 months? Is that what they call best effort? Another provision, that they either expect as an individual to earn $99,000 or less in income, or if you file jointly, $198,000 a year in income, or you didn't have to file taxes at all in 2019, or you received the stimulus check, that economic stimulus check that many received under the CARES Act a few months ago. If you receive that, you could very well be eligible under this program to have your eviction halted until next year. Now, when you look at that, The CARES Act said that it was under $75,000 in income that you would be able to receive this $1,200 per individual and $500 for each child. Now this agency order from CDC is $99,000. So for those of you receiving $75,000 between that and $99,000, penny less, you might be saying to yourself, well, why didn't I get the $1,200? Maybe I should be able to get it. Now I'm going to call up and find out why, and I'm going to demand my $1,200. But $99,000 in income, and you may run the risk of being evicted or being homeless with income that high. If you have income that high, and your rent is $3,000 a month for a single person, that leaves you with over $60,000 in pre-tax income that you can do anything you want with. Now, there's two of you at $198,000 a year with the same rent of $3,000 a month. That leaves you with over $150,000 in pre-tax income. Now, we all know that most rents are nowhere near that high. Yes, in Manhattan. Yes, in some areas where the rent is ridiculously high. Yes, it applies. But in general America, housing in America is not $3,000 a month. $700, $800, $900, $1,200, $1,500 a month, maybe. So at that kind of income, this should not even qualify for this. They've had plenty enough money to put aside for a rainy day, and enough money set aside to pay their rent. Another variable is that I am unable to pay my full rent or make a full housing payment due to substantial loss of household income, loss of work or wages, layoffs, or extraordinary out-of-pocket medical expenses. What about landlords? Could they not have extraordinary medical expenses? Could they not have been laid off from their job? Could they not have a reduction in work or wages due to COVID-19? Could they have lost their job too? Their loss of income has dropped because tenants are not paying the rent? Why should a landlord be burdened with the situations of a tenant when the landlord has no one to pass those burdens on to? Not that they should. No one should have to pass on the burdens on to somebody else. This is what American freedom is about. This is what about picking yourself up and doing what you need to do. But in the end, landlords should not be burdened with the financial problems of their tenants. And why is the government putting such an imposition on landlords? Because the tenant may have lost their job or got laid off and their hours have been cut? Well, it happens to landlords too. They have a source of income that's gone. But they're still mandated to pay the taxes, still mandated to do the repairs, still mandated to pay the insurance, but yet do so with people in the apartment who are not paying the rent. How fair is that to landlords? We all know the answer to that. It's not. It's not. Another one is that I am using best efforts to make timely partial payments that are as close to the full payment as I possibly can, taking into account non-discretionary expenses. Okay, again, what is best effort? And the rent's $1,000 a month and you're paying me $200 a month. Is that a best effort? Is it saying, oh, I'm trying. I really am trying. Really, Mr. Landlord, Mrs. Landlord, I'm trying. I'm giving you the most that I can. See, I have other expenses that I have. For those expenses be a national grid bill or a Con Ed bill, that's $400 or $500 a month because they've got air conditioners turned up and the heat turned way up. And they're walking around half naked in the middle of winter so their bills are high. Is it buying fancy TVs and cars from the stimulus money that they received? We know a case right now when the two people in the apartment received the $2,400 of stimulus money and $4,800 a month under the CARES Act for $600 a week in additional funds from unemployment through the end of July. But either way, they've been receiving this money left and right and left, and they haven't paid any of the rent, and they bought themselves a fancy car. Go figure. Go figure. How fair is that? We have another one. When between the stimulus money and the money for the children, they got $3,900 and did not pay 1 penny in rent. So how are they trying? Non-discretionary expenses? Why should the landlord have to worry about that? It's the money that's owed to us. We want the money, thank you very much. Another one If evicted, I would likely become homeless, need to move into a homeless shelter, or need to move into a new residence shared by other people, thus living in close quarters, thus putting me at risk of getting COVID-19. Because I know there are available housing options. If you were making that kind of money, $60,000, $70,000, $50,000, and you get evicted, how are you going to be homeless? You didn't put any money aside for a rainy day. Many tenants have said out there on social media, well, the landlord should have money set aside, because I can't pay my rent. They should have money set aside for the mortgage. They should have money set aside for the taxes. That's not my problem. Well, yes it is. You didn't pay. Why should the landlord have a rainy day fund when it is you, the tenant, that owes the landlord, not the other way around? Why? When you look at the homelessness, okay, one of the things that we have said many times in our business and our deal legal is that if you were to take a tenant and strip him naked and put him out in the snowbank in the middle of winter, they would have a place to live by tomorrow. But when options are laid out and red carpets are laid out and delays are laid out for tenants, what is the need? Where is the necessity to find a place to live right now? Where is it? It's not there. Another variable that they have here is that I understand that I have to make my rent and housing payment to the best of my ability. And if not, I can be hit with fees, late fees, expenses, and interest charges. Okay, I'm telling you right now, government, landlords don't care about the late fees and the expenses and the interest charges. They just want the base rent. Yeah, the $100 in late fees is nice, sure, thank you very much. But the landlord wants the $1,000 a month in rent, the $800 a month in rent. If you're not going to pay that, then what the heck's the sense in having a late fee and interest charges? If you can't collect the $800, what makes you think you're going to collect the other money? You're not. Other one that they have here, the last variable, is I further understand that at the end of the temporary halt on evictions, that my housing provider, aka landlord, may require payment in full on the payments that I have missed prior to and during this COVID-19 crisis, and that they may take me to court for eviction that follow state and local laws. Landlords are absolutely going to do that. They are going to take you to court for not paying the rent. That's a no-brainer. But for the government to say that they're going to take you to court, the reason why the government is doing these eviction moratoriums is that they are worried about an avalanche of evictions, a flood of evictions, a tsunami of evictions when these eviction moratoriums finally end. When that will be, who knows? They've been going on for months now. Well, we here in the landlord advocates do not believe that the synapses are firing properly in the brains of our legislative leaders, our government leaders, judicial, executive, and legislative. They're not firing properly, and here's why. They're all concerned about what will happen when the moratoriums are over. Look at the millions of people who will be evicted and made homeless. Well, let's think about that for a moment, those who have imposed these oppressive laws on landlords. Let's think about it for a minute. If you allowed evictions to happen in March, there would have been a little ripple. April, a little bigger. May, a little bigger, and so on and so on and so on. Well, now, by the time tenants are in court, January, February, March, or even longer, that little ripple now is a tsunami that's 3,000 feet in the air. It's going to swallow up everything in the United States of America. There will be many, many more evictions. There could be the possibility of many, many more homeless people that you are so worried about. If you had allowed these evictions to go through when they were allowed, when they should have been allowed in March, April, and May, then the amount of people being homeless would have been greatly reduced. But the longer you allow these moratoriums to go on, the longer you allow tenants to remain in the property when the landlord wants them to go bye-bye, the longer these problems are going to happen. Now, one of the little shining aspects of this CDC agency order is that other evictions may commence. Failure to comply with the lease, failure to comply with regulations, nothing to do with rent at all. The problem with that is landlords in some municipalities, you can give them that holdover notice. In New York, a 30 to 60, 90. In most states, a 30-day notice to vacate. And at the end of that, if they don't move or they don't pay, you can take them to court as a holdover and say, Your Honor, they haven't moved, I want them to go. And if they don't go, the court should render a warrant of eviction to vacate the tenant from the property. But if that doesn't happen, you're stuck with them. Some courts are invoking financial hardship in a holdover when the tenant is facing problems financially. And in the holdover, that was never a part of the holdover. Financial aspect was removed from the holdover. The landlord just wanted to retain and regain the property that the tenant was in that they wanted gone. Now it's been brought into play. So even in a holdover that you file, that may still be a problem. If not, try the holdover eviction and at the same time, take the tenant to court for small claims for the back rent. Some of it may be a higher amount. Most jurisdictions it's $3,000 and $5,000 is the max. You can also take them to county court, where it's $25,000 in most jurisdictions for the back rent that's owed. I don't know how far you'll get, but it's well worth trying. Now, there are criminal penalties added to this if a landlord says, you know what, I've had enough. I'm going to do my own self-help eviction. I'm going to do my own constructive eviction. Landlords, as much as we don't blame you one bit for wanting to do it, we implore you not to. We have a previous video that we put up a few weeks ago, the number one thing that landlords should never do. We invite you to watch that video, and that is regarding constructive evictions. There are penalties and fines and jail time if you do that. Well, now the federal government has ramped up, has amped up, has electrified the penalties and jail time if you do a constructive eviction. If you were to do that anywhere in the United States, if you are a private individual and you do that, and no one dies from you doing that, and who's to say that they had a pre-existing condition, but the government will say, oh, it was COVID-19 that did it. Whereas it's already been said by the CDC a few days ago that only 4% of those who have died from COVID-19 died exclusively from COVID-19, and 96% who have died had a pre-existing condition. So when the government extrapolates the death of that potential or that individual that died as a result of being evicted by you illegally, that they died from COVID-19 or not a previous existing condition, are they going to do that? But if they do, if no one dies and you do an unlawful eviction, it is a maximum of a $100,000 fine if you do that, and or a year in jail, both. If someone were to die as a result of an unlawful eviction, it's proven that you did that, it's a $250,000 maximum fine and a year in jail, or probably more. Now, if you're an organization, now they don't define an organization. Can an organization be a sole member LLC? That categorizes as an organization. Could it be a corporation made up of 3 or 4 people? That's an organization. Or could it be a conglomeration, a huge organization, a huge corporation that might have, holdings of $10 billion in real estate with 100,000 apartments? There's no clear definition of what an organization is. But if an organization were to do the same thing in constructive eviction, they are going to be hit with a maximum $200,000 penalty if no one dies through a constructive illegal lockout, illegal eviction. If someone were to die and it's proven that they died because they were unlawfully evicted, that organization, yet not defined, that organization would be hit with a $500,000 fine per situation, per occurrence, and will more than sure jail time for the executives of that corporation. As we've seen, landlords, again, another act by the government oppressing landlords to get rid of tenants who are destroying the property or not paying the rent. It seems like every day or every week or every month, some entity in government, whether it be a local, state, or federal government entity, is imposing more and more regulations on landlords. But the bottom line is that it remains the same no matter what it is. Landlords must keep tenants in the property. They can evict. But the mountain of evidence, the mountain to climb, to garner that warrant or writ of eviction, so the sheriff or constable or marshal can remove the tenant, is getting higher and higher and higher. We ask, on behalf of every landlord in America, the landlord advocates is asking the government, when are you going to stop this oppression? When are you going to stop these atrocities against landlords? When are you going to allow landlords to evict their tenants so that they can retain their properties that they worked so hard to acquire? When, government, when? Landlords, as you know, this channel, the Landlord Advocates, is here with you and is here for you. Stay tuned for more videos. We have one coming up where there's going to be a major rally coming up next month in New York City. Stay tuned to the Landlord Advocates. Stay tuned to NY Landlords on Facebook. We are working in conjunction with NY Landlords, in which we are a member on Facebook. And we are working with some landlords in New York City and landlords here in upstate New York to get together and rally like never before to let the governments know what they're doing against landlords is very wrong. Landlords, subscribe to this channel. Subscribe right now. Hit the like button right now. Hit that notification bell so that you are made aware of future videos. Watch these videos. Share these videos with other landlords, real estate agents, law firms. Share it. We must watch. We must grow. We must learn. We must take a stand. We must let our voices be heard. Landlords, thank you. Take care.